Thank you, Carl, for giving us a thorough look at your company and your growth prospects. Now I'd like to go over some questions with you. Now, just a reminder to investors listening to this presentation, if we don't get through a question here that you might have had, you can always email us at conferences@littlegrapevine.com, and we'll make sure to get those questions to Carl so we can answer them. So, Carl, I want to take care of a few, maybe two house cleaning questions in the beginning here. I think you kind of touched upon it in your presentation, but can you please go over some of your capital structure changes that have happened since going public? Have there been any significant changes?
Well, we have done a number of raises in going through 2015. Since then, we haven't had any, and one of the raises was a convertible preferred stock, which has been converted into equity. But at this point, our capital consists of bank loans. We made a major change and went to M&T Bank, commercial bank with very low interest rates, and that is being paid down. We have a working capital loan now of about $3.3 million. That's Great. Being reduced.
All right, and because you're still on the OTC, I think it's a good idea to ask this question in the beginning rather than the end. Do you have some plans to uplist to a major exchange?
Absolutely. We hope to uplist to NASDAQ later this year. We have some warrants outstanding, which hopefully will be converted, which will add to our net worth, which will lower our debt as well, and we think we will qualify. We will not have to raise capital to uplist. We may have to do a reverse split, hopefully not.
Great. All right, let's move into your understanding your business and some of your customer relationships. Maybe you could take us through how your relationships with some of your supermarket customers, like Publix, have evolved over time.
Okay, well, Publix is a good example. We started with Publix about 7 years ago, selling into their meat department, packaged sleeves. Think of Tyson chicken strips or Hormel meatloaf. And so we were doing around $500,000 a year back then. About 3 years ago, we entered the sandwich part of Publix, and we now are in their meatball sandwiches. They wanted to upgrade from the product they had already. And then we started selling them meatloaf, which goes into the pre-cooked section. And now we just started selling them pasta bowls, 3 pasta bowls, but in test in 350 stores. And in addition, we sell them, just started about a year ago, antibiotic-free beef, chicken, and turkey meatballs. And that is only in about 18 stores. Volume per store is very high. They're equivalent to Whole Food stores. And that will grow into a couple hundred unit stores. I had a call with Publix this past week, which went very well. And we now will have our meatloaf and our meatballs in public meals where they put together the protein with 2 other items there in a grab and go, but that will increase business very significantly. And hopefully at the end of the year, we will get our pasta bowls into the whole chain. And last but not least, we've talked to them about a test for a Beyond Meatball sandwich, which will allow them to have a plant-based product that they don't have to grill. So here's a chain. We start with a 500,000. We're going to 4 or 5 million this year, and probably going to 9 to 10 million in the next couple of years.
Thank you, Carl. So you list some very recognizable customers in your presentation. However, I did not see Costco on the list. We noticed that there's some online sources talking about some Costco locations carrying your product. Can you please comment on this?
We just started selling Costco this year about 3 weeks ago in the Mid-Atlantic region from Virginia through New England, west of Pittsburgh. And it's done very, very well. Costco just gave us a major reorder, larger than the first order. And we're very happy with the results. And now we are actually sending samples to other Costco divisions. Hopefully, there's a total of 8 divisions. There's 550 locations. So hopefully we will get into the other divisions. If an item sells well at Costco and you're in there for the whole year, it's 20 to 30 million dollars in sales. So it's a very big opportunity for the company.
And why don't you take us through your QVC relationship, how that started? Is it a long-term relationship? Is it a one-off thing?
QVC has been very long. It's about 7 years. And QVC has to be managed very, very carefully. We have a dedicated person who handles the accounting and backup. QVC can be a difficult customer in terms of profits and operations. So you have to be very, very careful, which we are. And we are one of the top 1 or 2 producers per show. And Dan Mancini is on there each time if possible. And we've done very, very well. They measure you in sales per minute.
Right, so in November 2017, you acquired a company called Joseph Epstein Food Enterprises. Why did you do that, and what does the acquisition do for the company?
Joseph Epstein was owned by our own family, and the company bought it just for acquiring the liabilities of the company. The valuation, we had an outside appraisal done, was substantially higher, but insider management didn't want to get involved as to what getting remuneration for something that would help the overall company, and the insiders already own 47% of the business. But Joseph Epstein secures our source of supply, and now as the volume keeps increasing, the plant becomes a very significant profit center.
Let's move into growth opportunities.
Sure.
You've kind of went through it in some of your previous answers to the questions and your presentation, but with your current product lineup, do you see a good deal of growth opportunities within your fully penetrated customer base, or would you have to introduce more products? For example, when you say that you're fully penetrated into a customer ecosystem, are you talking about locations or exposure of current product line within that location?
We're talking about locations. So as an example, we only sell 1 item at Costco, and if we're successful, and we said the potential, if you're in all year and do well, is 20, 25 million. So you would hope to sell Costco 2, 3, 4 items eventually. So some of the new products we have are generated by our key customers, larger customers, where they have a request, where we spin an idea with them. From there, we'll go into that one customer or on QVC, and in essence, it's a test. And if it does well, we then can present it to the other customers. So I see about 6 to 9 new products coming out in the next few years. And a customer, hopefully like Publix, can grow to 10, 12, 14 items.
Now, I guess that leads us to our next question here. You currently sell 26 different products. The bulk of your revenue is generated from selling beef, turkey meatballs, meatloaf, chicken, sausage-related products, and pasta entrees.
Right.
Do you see an opportunity to increase the contribution of your non-primary products to your revenue mix?
It's the 20-80 rule. So we're concentrating on our larger products and our prepared food products, which have the highest margins. The customer wants high quality, and we're being compared to restaurant food or restaurant takeout food. So they're willing to pay a reasonable price for quality. So, and the supermarkets have a very significant advantage. So I don't see our going with the smaller items. However, anything can come up. We're just introducing a new product now, spinach lasagna roll-ups, which is delicious, and in a major customer just going out this week, in fact. So if that does well there, we then can bring it to others. And with another major customer, just about ready to start shipping stuffed shells. So if that does well, we then will start presenting it elsewhere.
Great.
So those are 2 new items. Those are 2 new items.
So you said, I think earlier, you said you're going to maybe introduce 6 new products this year, this 2020. If you look over the next 3 years, you have an idea how many new products you want to offer?
6 to 9.
Over the next
2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 a year. Major ones. Okay. Now, it may be a different size pack or variation, but We're talking about the product concept.
So you've really done a good job of penetrating some of your supermarket chains. And I think you have some goals of penetrating the food service market area. When do you believe that will start having a major impact on your revenue?
It's on hold, I could say, for a year. The food service industry is reeling, and they're just trying to survive and figure out. So they're not, they're not taking my call and saying, "Hey, I got a great new product for you." So right now, we've cut back expenditures dramatically there, and so we're just proceeding right now with not being in our horizon for the short term.
So I guess, well, I'd like to know another good question we could ask here. Some of your growth objectives are probably put on hold because of COVID-19. But how do you look organically? I mean, can you still grow organically even if you can't pursue some of these new growth areas?
We're showing very significant growth, especially in the club store area. With club store chains or equivalent, high volume chains. So our volume has been very high. So, and we've delivered on time and high quality. So we become a trusted supplier. So it's likely we'll get more business.
And I know it's early in the process of your relationship with Beyond Meat, but is there anything you want to talk about there?
It's very, very early. Beyond is in tests right now. And we'll take it from there step by step. Beyond is for most prepared food sections is a major new concept. So we will have to take it pretty slow, and we'll know by the end of the year how well it's been doing for us.
Now, Beyond Meat products are certified non-GMO. Do you at some point plan on offering also non-GMO products through the Beyond Meat relationship?
Only potentially in the Beyond Meat products. The other products, meat products, there's no demand for non-GMO characters.
And now you currently offer gluten-free beef and turkey balls. Do you plan on releasing a line of gluten-free pasta products?
We have them right now. There really hasn't been very much interest in it. So we will see, but right now there's been very little demand. We are offering it.
And when you look at your margins, your gross margins, what segments do you see the highest gross margins in? And do you have a plan of penetrating higher gross margin type of avenues as you move forward?
Our packaged sleeve business, generally speaking, has lower gross margins, although with COVID, we've cut back promotions. But the prepared food section has higher margins. And as we have higher volume, the margin should increase. What I should point out is as we go to larger customers, and many of them are on an everyday low price and high volume trailer load business, the margins may be a little lower, but the operating profit is as high or higher because there's no other expenses involved in handling that customer. So the way we look at each business is a line called profit contribution. And that is cost of goods plus any sales commissions, any freight, any promotional and merchandising allowances, and any other expenses involved with that customer directly related to the sale. And then that gives you what we call the profit contribution line. So that number, we are shooting to make 20-25% on each additional sale. And that is the key. And that, for the most part, comes down to the bottom as our SG&A expenses are pretty much holding their own, or the other SG&A expenses. Now, when you see SG&A on our financial statements, it includes the freight out, promotions, merchandising, and sales agency fees. So they will go up, but not nearly as much.
So you've achieved some nice, consistent organic top line growth in revenue over the last few years. Are you also looking to make acquisitions moving forward, or do you think you have enough organic opportunities in front of you that you wouldn't have to do that?
I think the coming year is going to be a very important year for strategic alternatives, at least by the fall. At that point, we would have to decide whether we want to get involved with a larger company that larger companies probably would have to be very helpful in export and in food service and other alternative channels such as drugstores and general merchandise stores, or whether we are going to go to loan, and in that case we would look to make either some mergers or acquisitions. That pretty much will come out. In whatever case, there will be a change in the direction of the company. In the meantime, we are beginning to look at some very small food service manufacturing companies that are being hit hard and represent an opportunistic situation for the company where we can acquire them relatively cheaply and integrate a very high quality product into our line and then push it out to our trade channel, our supermarket trade channel.
Let's talk about your balance sheet or your just funding requirements in general next. You have some aggressive market expansion goals. What type of expenditures will this require from a plant expansion to staffing needs?
Right now, we think our plant can handle around 70 million in sales with what we foresee right now, which would take us through next spring, to the middle of the year. Again, that would go past our strategic views without any major expenditures. We do have plans in the works, which is not a major cost, to reorganize our shipping area and holding area. But we think we're in pretty good shape. And in terms of cash flow, we have very, very significant cash flow based on profits. And also there are some warrants outstanding, which we think will be converted. So we think we'll have more than ample cash and no need for additional financing. We also have a bank line of $500,000 for equipment financing at very low rates.
Okay, let's talk about some of the risks to the business from your point of view. What are some of the major risks you see to your growth plan and shelf space placement within supermarkets and mass merchant market retailers, customers?
The biggest risk we have is actually not shelf placements, as we have a very good relationship, and at this point we know what products are selling or not selling, except for some of the newer ones, which some of them don't make it, but we limit the number of customers we ship to, so there's virtually no loss or very minor loss in introducing a new product. The biggest risk we have in the very short run is the very rapid increase in beef prices and supply chain. Thus far, we've been holding pretty well, more than well, and we've been able to reasonably pass along the increased cost. However, it's day to day in this, and the supply chain could break or something can happen, although I don't think that will happen. I think that a number of those closed plants will reopen very soon. It's 2 weeks quarantine, and then the hoarding mentality has to stop. So I think by mid to late June, we should see a return to normalcy. It also may be an opportunity when the prices come back down, and we may be able to improve margins after the whole thing slightly. Because not all the price increases will go back.
Have you ever had a product recall issue?
We did about 4 or 5 years ago. We had, I think, 24 cases of gluten-free beef meatballs that were mislabeled. Went to one customer. It was 144 units. Went to one customer, about 20 stores. We asked the one customer. We told the USDA, but we asked the one customer to send someone out to pick it up since it was isolated. We had good records and isolated. The customer said no, so we had to report it. But anyway, it was handled very quickly and efficiently. But there was no tainted products or anything. We didn't, by the way, we didn't have to report it to the USDA. I'm just kind of I didn't want to have any, the amount of gluten in the product was very small, but I didn't want to have any risk if anyone had any illnesses.
And what are the measures you have in place to identify those types of situations when they
But we
occur?
now use a different color bag for the gluten-free product.
All right, so one more question on risk. You have some customer concentration risk. How do you see this playing out over time? Can you get customer concentration? Hold on, let me do it again. You have some customer concentration risk. How do you see this playing out over time? Can you get that risk of your top 3 customers below 20% over time?
I don't think so. I think we're talking time, you're talking about in 3 years. So I think the top 3 customers could be down to about 40–45% over that period of time. If we make a very significant foray into food service, then which I'm giving it more time at this point, we could move it down to the 20–25%, but that would be more years out.
You already addressed COVID-19 and supply chain issues and how that's going to play out in your mind. Is there anything else you want to talk about regarding COVID-19? How it can affect the business positively or negatively?
Well, we anticipated COVID very early. That's my button. When we were at Alpine Lace years ago, when I was chairman CEO, we didn't have any issues, but a supplier did, and we handled it perfectly well. But I'm very aware of what it can do to your business. So on COVID, we were one of the first people to scan for temperatures, masks, gloves, spacing, extra cleanliness. So all that was done extremely early. We did have some cases, but they were modest and they were early and they're pretty much over. So we've been in pretty good shape in handling that.
Great. I have 3 additional questions from our little Grapevine Investor Network.
Okay.
And the first question, has anything surprised you about your last quarterly earnings report?
I'd hoped it would be a little higher operating profit, which I knew, but we had some issues which we took care of. So I think operating profits on sales on a normal basis would be running higher than what it did last quarter.
Okay. And what does the future look like for prepared and fresh packaged food?
Very good, especially now with food service being a much lower segment of expenditures. So people are going to want to have equivalent to food service food in their home. So, and also, I believe that consumers are spending relatively, the ones who have income, are spending relatively higher amounts of their food dollar on as a percentage of total expenditures to treat themselves. So if they see something that costs more or is higher quality, they're going to buy it to give themselves a treat. It's pretty morbid out there. So.
Our final question. Newer investors to Mamamancini might wonder about or making a comparison to Blue Apron, HelloFresh, or other types of fresh packaged meal companies. Explain the challenges in that category and why that's not the space Mamamancini gets involved in.
I think that ultimately, although there's been a push for meals at home, consumers don't want to make up their mind what they're going to eat, significantly ahead of time. Also, families, as we revert back to some of our former lifestyle, really don't eat together. They eat separate times, and very often when they order out, they eat different foods. When you go to a restaurant, you get different. Each person gets a different selection. So on the meal kits, you have to order ahead of time. You have to decide what you want that night, and so forth. So while in the short run, we're bunkered down and so forth, but as things start easing up, I think that it's going to move away. Also, the amount of food in the meal kit is not tremendous. It's adequate, but it's not abundant. So I've never been a fan of that business, and I think you're going to go back to the same problems again. So, and a survey showed that 70% of all consumers make up their mind what they want for dinner that day after lunch. Now, today is not so because you can't run out to the supermarket every day. But as things ease up, they will go back to some of that. So I think it's a tough industry.
Great.
Plus, the cost of shipping is outrageous.
Great. Well, thank you, Carl. You did a great job today with going through your presentation and these questions. Just a reminder, if you listen to this presentation and Q&A and there's some questions that were not asked, please email us at converses@littlegrapevine.com, and we'll make sure to get Carl the questions, and hopefully you can get the answers to your questions.